I have a lot of information to cover. I will ask and answer questions rather afterwards. I'm going to show you today how to create a list from scratch, how to favorite a list, how to apply filters and views. To view the list as a calendar, we'll look at conditional formatting and formulas, list validations, alerts and rules, and I'll show you how to modify the layout of your list form. A list is a collection of data displayed in a set of rows and columns, with each row in the list representing an individual item in the list, like an Excel spreadsheet. If you're familiar with lists in SharePoint, then it's basically the same thing. It's just that now there's a separate app for lists available in your Microsoft 365 account, and you get there via www.office.com. And when you log into your office.com account, you'll land at the Microsoft 365 homepage. And to get to the Lists app, you just select the app launcher and you select Lists. Using the List app, you can save a list to SharePoint. You can create your own private list where only you have access. You can share your private list with others on your team. You cannot share with external users. So it's like OneDrive in that aspect where you cannot share externally, but you can share with some of your colleagues or anyone in your organization. And you can also share individual list items. There are several ways to create a list. You have the List app in Microsoft Office. You also have Microsoft 365 Home. You'll see the little create icon there. You click on that, you'll have the option to create a list. You can create a list in the SharePoint site, so everyone who has access to the site has access to the list. You can create a list in Microsoft Teams, also in the Microsoft Lists mobile app. And in the Teams mobile app, you can view and edit existing lists that were created in Teams, but you cannot create a list from scratch, or a new list rather, in the Teams mobile app. I'm going to show you how to create a list from scratch. I'm using this site here, ABC Company. So to create a new list, I'm going to go here. I'm already at the home page, and I'll click on New List. And you'll see here you have the options to create a blank list, a list from an existing list. And when you create a new list from an existing list, the system will create a new list with the same list structure. So that's the same columns, customizations, and views, but it will not create the content. You also can create a new list from Excel. And down here, you'll see some templates. You can modify these templates by creating, deleting, or renaming columns. You can apply your own column formatting and just customize it the way you want. And what's nice about this is that some of these templates have Power Automate flows built in. So I think there are several of them that have approval flows. And the way that works is when someone enters or creates a new list item, there's a column in there for them to indicate who the approver is. And then once they do that, that approver will receive an email notification, and they'll receive a notification in Teams. Let me show you what that looks like. Right here in Teams, there's a button here for approvals. So that approver will receive that here in their approvals page in Teams. And then they can go ahead and either approve or reject. And once they make that decision, there's a column in the, let me go back. There's a column in the list for a status. So once they approve or reject, that column's status will change from waiting for approval to either approve or reject. So that's what's really nice about these templates. You have all that built in, and some of them have the Power Automate flows attached to them. Okay, I'm going to create a blank list, and my list, give it a name. 2. Okay. 3. Alrighty, and I'm going to select this show in site navigation. It will appear here. A link to the list will appear here. And I'm just doing that now because it will be easy for me to move back and forth to this list. Okay, and I usually name my lists and columns. I omit the space because I don't want the URL to be encoded with that %20 character to indicate a space. Is just an easier read for me. So I usually just, and if you look up here, travel request list, there's no spaces, so there's no %20 in between representing each space. So now I'm going to go here, list settings, list name, and then I'm going to change it the way I want it to read on the page. Oops. All right, there you go. All right, and now I have the list. So notice here, by default, it creates a view called all items. So it's going to list all items in the view. And this all items view has the title column listed as default. The title column is a special column, is of type single line text. It cannot be deleted. It's used to open and edit list items by hovering over the title. I don't have anything here. Let me navigate to this one here. So see this title column, when you hover over it, you'll see it underlined and you can just click on it to open and edit. And all the other columns, they do not have that feature. Okay. I'm sorry. Back to my list 3. Okay. Also, with the title column, it can be renamed. So if you're creating a list and title is not an appropriate name for the column for your list, you can go ahead and repurpose it by renaming it. You can also hide the title column if you just don't want to use it at all. But there's one caveat, is the recycle bin. The recycle bin uses the title column to indicate what item is in the bin here. So if you see all of these, they have a name here, but this last one here is from a list where the title column was hidden. So if you're trying to recover or restore some files that are in your recycle bin and you're looking for a file, you're really not going to know what's here because you don't see a title attached to it. So that's just something to remember when you're renaming that title column. It's really best to repurpose it. I'm sorry, not renaming, hiding it. It's best to rename it, don't hide it, because you'll just run into that problem. Okay, I'm going to create several columns and then I'm going to switch over to another list because of time constraints. I do want to show you how to add a people column or person next. And I'm going to name this requester. Show profile photos. I'm going to select yes. I want to see their photo in this column when it's created. I want it to be a mandatory column. So where it says require that this column contains information, I'm going to select yes and save. I'm going to add a travel start date, and that's going to be a date and time. Okay. I want this to be required. I don't want to include the time, and I don't want a friendly format. And I'm going to now change this because I want it to have the spaces when I have it here in my list view. I just don't want the internal name to contain the encoding for the spaces, that %20 sign. It's just an easier read. and also just a travel thing. Oh, sorry. And now I'm going to create a calculated column. So I will enter a formula that will calculate, that will determine the value of this travel duration. And that's going to be the start time, the days between the start date and the end date. And you'll notice here you do not see an option for calculated column. So in order to get to that or create it, I'll have to select See all column types, click Next. And then here you'll have more options, and the calculated column is one of those options. And this is travel duration. And the formula, I'm going to use a date diff formula, or function rather, in this formula. So the date diff is the function, and what it's doing is it's saying travel start date minus travel end date will give me the number of days. I want this to return a number. I don't want any decimals. And that's the formula for the calculated column for the travel duration, the number of days between the start date and the end date. What did I do? Let's see, did I? Oh, I'm sorry. Let's go back. I have to create it all over again. Okay. Calculated column, see all column types. Next. Travel duration. Calculated column. Formula. Equals date diff. Got two D's in there. Date diff. Travel start date. Travel end date. Oh, I see what happened. Ah, I did not change the display name for travel end date. So that formula I pasted and gave me an error. I'm so sorry. Let's go back. Travel duration. Okay, date diff, travel start date. Okay, That formula looks right. I want it to be a number. None. Okay. There you go. I want to change that again, the display for the view. So I have to do list settings because that's a calculated column. I can't do it the other way. By selecting the column and saying edit, I have to do it they call this the classic mode. Okay. Okay. Last one is airline, and that's going to be a choice column. So I could come here and enter all the choices individually. And if you have a lengthy list, that can really take a long time. So what I'm going to do is instead do it the classic way. Go to list settings, create a column, airline, choice, and I have my airlines list in Notepad, so I'm just going to paste it down in here. Okay. I don't want a default value, so I'm going to remove that. Okay. All right, so I created a couple of columns. I just wanted to show you how to create those. I'm going to move to this list here, travel request list. It's already populated. It has the columns and it has data. So you have the title, requester, travel start date, travel end date, travel duration, and see how it calculates the date difference between travel start and travel end. The total cost column here adds both hotel and airfare. And then I have these other columns here, field office, venue, trip category, and also have the attachments. The attachments is another special column. So by default, when you create a new list item, you'll see attachments is enabled. So you can add an attachment, but it's not automatically added to the view, not the all items view anyway. So to do that, you would just select this all items view, edit the current view, and then you could, this was by default disabled. So you can just come in here and click that and it'll show the attachments. And let me go back there. I wanted to make the attachments mandatory, so the user had to attach a file. And when you go to list settings, you'll see, you won't see attachments here. So in order to get to it, I can just click on any column and you look here in the URL, it has the column internal name. So airline, and I'm just going to change that to attachments. Enter. And now I can change it from no, which how it was set by default, to yes. So now the user has to attach a file to this list. Okay, because I want to show you how to conditionally show or hide columns on the list form, I created the trip category, the field office, and the venue columns. So if the user selects field visit from the trip category column, then I want them to enter the field office and not a venue. So I want the field office column to appear on the form and I want the venue column to be hidden. If the user instead selects conference, seminar, or training as a trip category, I want to hide the field office column and show the venue column. And to do that, I would add a conditional formula. So use conditional formulas to show or hide columns. So for the field office, I'm going to select new, edit the form, edit columns. And field office, click the ellipsis, edit conditional formula, and here's my formula. So this is if trip category equals field visit, then true. I want you to display the field visit column on the form, the list form. If not, I want it hidden. Same thing for venue. If the trip category equals conference, or the trip category equals seminar, or the trip category equals training, yes, I want you to show the venue field or column on that list form. If not, I want it hidden. I also added a couple of column validations to make sure the travel start date and the travel end date are not dates in the future or future dates. There are two ways to apply that. There's the modern way where you do it by just navigating to the list here. Let me close this. And apply that column formatting on the column. And then you can do it the classic way by just going to list settings. And I found when I was trying to do it the modern way, it was problematic. It seems like the formula was changing. So I'm just going to show you how to do it the classic way. So I'm going to click on list settings. And I'm going to select the travel start date. And see down here is where I can add my column validation. So this says, if the travel start date is less than today, or the travel start date equals today, then yes, that's fine. Allow the user to submit this form. If not, they're going to receive an error message, and it'll say, this is the user message. Travel start date cannot be a date in the future. And I did the same thing for travel end date. Travel end date. If travel end date is less than today, or travel end date equals today, yes, it evaluates to true. The user is allowed to submit the form. If not, they'll receive this error message here. So that's how you can create column validations. Last thing, I want to conditionally require the field office and the venue columns on the list form. Using list validations. I also want to make sure the travel start date is not later than the travel end date. So, sometimes when you're filling out forms and you have to enter dates, you mix the dates up and you enter the wrong date. So I want to make sure that travel start date is not later than the travel end date. And I'm going to do this using list validations. I cannot achieve it using the column validations because I need to refer to other columns in my formula. So with column validation, you can only refer to the current column in which you are performing the validation. You cannot refer to another column. So to show you how I did that, to get to list validation, select the settings, list settings, validation settings, and here is my formula. Now, one drawback to using it this way or doing it this way is that you can only have one formula here. So that's why I have these multiple if statements. And you can only have one user message. And you'll see how that works when I test this. But this is the formula. And I'm going to navigate to my PowerPoint because it's a little easier to read there. This is all the information on the title column. calculated columns. Okay, here's list validation. Okay, here you go. So this is the formula, and it reads, if travel start date is greater than travel end date, false. I do not want the user to be able to submit this form. If trip category equals field visit and the field office is blank, false. I do not want the user to be able to submit this form. And then here, if trip category equals conference and venue is blank, false. And then the same for these two, the seminar and the training. Or you can create a formula that's a little more condensed here, but it evaluates to the same thing. If travel start date is greater than travel end date, false. If trip category equals field visit and the field office is blank, false. You don't want them to be able to submit the form. And lastly here, if trip category equals conference or trip category equals seminar or trip category equals training and the venue is blank, false. We do not want the user to submit that form. Otherwise, it's true and the user can submit the form. And these are the user messages here. So let me navigate to the list. This is the travel request list. And let's try it out. New, the requester will be me. I'm sorry. The title, let's see. Travel start date. So let's test. The travel start date is 16. The travel end date. So see, I'm entering a travel start date that comes after the travel end date. Conference. And see, I selected conference, so it's showing me the venue. If I were to select seminar, I have to enter a venue. But if I select field visit, I have to select a field office. So that works. Okay. I don't want field visit. I want conference. And I'm going to do airline American. Add an attachment because I made that mandatory. And see, you're getting the error messages for the list validation. And this is why I said it's not ideal, because the user would see this and they'd say, okay, well, which one of these errors am I causing here? So it's, you can maybe help the user by adding these little numbers here for them to see the number of errors that are on the form. But it can be a little confusing. But I just wanted to show you how to do list validations. So now if I go back and change start to 16, and then I'm able to submit the form. Do another one. I'll do a simple, same thing. Um, um, Start date, end date, trip category, field visit. So it's going to just show you the field office. You won't see that venue column there. Oh, I don't have California. Okay, it doesn't matter. Airline, select an airline. Add an attachment. And you're able to submit the form. All right, so that's how you add list validation, column validation, calculated columns, and conditional formulas to your list form. I want to show you how to favorite a list. So you'll do that if it's a list that you use a lot and you want to be able to easily access it in the Lists app or in My Lists. So here's the list, and you just click on this star right here. And when you click on that, you'll see that updating your favorites. And then if you navigate here to the app launcher, select lists, you'll see the travel request list here in your favorites. Same thing if you click on My Lists. Oh, okay, hold on one second. Travel request list here. Sometimes you have to refresh. It takes a moment. Okay, list filters. So you can apply filters to just filter out what you want to see, what columns you want to see, how you want the formatting to appear, how you want to sort if you want to group. It's just the way you want to see your data. You can apply filters here. There are column header filters, and then there's the filters pane. Column header filters. So if I just wanted to see items from requester Silpa, and it'll just show me that. Or I could select here the filters pane, and then you have more options here. The trip category, the travel dates. If you notice, not all of your columns are listed here in the filters pane. And if you wanted to add a column to the filters pane, so I noticed airline was not, I could come to the airline column settings, pin to filters pane. So it placed it there. I can say pin. So now it's pinned to the filters pane. So each time you come here, you'll have this where you can filter the airline. So it's just two ways of filtering, via the filters pane or the column. Show list is a calendar, but before I do that, I do want to also show you how to create. So let's see. Let me go here. I want to remove that. Okay. Or you can just click that to clear filters. Yeah. Okay. So that's how you create a filter. But if you find yourself filtering the list the same way all the time, you may want to create what they call a view. And a view is just really a saved filter. So again, if I wanted to just see conferences, I could select filter by conference, apply, and then I can select here for the view options, save view as, I'm going to call it conferences. I can make this a public view, so anyone that has access to this list will be able to come up here and click on this view, or I can deselect it to make it my own private view. I'm going to keep it public. So now you'll see here is the all items view, and here the conferences view. And now that you create a view, it has a URL. So I could actually copy this URL, and if I wanted to maybe edit the navigation and add a link to all conferences, I can just paste the URL in there and just say, so that's another nice thing about having a view is that it has a URL and you can place it in a menu. You can also, I'm going to go to home. I'm going to edit this page. I'm going to add a lists web part. I can search for it instead of scrolling. List. Okay. And now I can click the edit. I can pick my list. And now I can show a particular view. So I'm just going to select conferences, apply, and it'll show all the conferences. Now this, let me see, I want to go in and change this. Edit current view. Since I have just a small space on that home page, I just really want to see the requester and the title. So everything else, I just want to deselect. Say OK. It's still kind of tight. I can, yeah. So in an instance like this, you may want to not put it in this right column and instead drag it. Where you have more space. And then I can, here, just say conferences. Okay. So that's how you can use views. Alrighty. Next is to show your list as a calendar. So since I have dates in this list, I can show it as a calendar. And you do that by creating a new view. Wrong one, I'm sorry. That's my list, travel request list. And I'm going to say here, create new view. And you have list option gallery board. I'm going to select a calendar. I want the month layout, and you have to select a start date and an end date. So I'm going to select travel start date, travel end date. It's already selected. Again, I can make this a public view and more options here. So the title is what will appear on the calendar. So for now, I'm going to say title. And that's your calendar view. Now, as you can see there, that is not really ideal. I can see the titles of the training or the seminar or the conference, but I don't know who's attending. So I wanted to add the requester and the title. Now, ordinarily, I would be able to use or create a calculated column to concatenate both the title and the requester, but you cannot use the people column in a calculation, in a calculated column, rather. So what I did, let me go back to it. Sorry. happened? Oh boy. All right, give me 1 second. I don't know what happened to my PowerPoint. Okay, so what I did to concatenate both the title column and the requester is I created a Power Automate flow that when an item was created, I created two variables here to hold the requester and the title, the trip name rather. Once an item was created, it got that information. It set the variables here for the requester and the trip name, and then it updated a column, which I created in this list. And I'm going to go to settings here to look at the columns, list settings. I created a text column called requester and title. It's a single line text, and that Power Automate flow, when an item is created, it concatenates both the requester and the title, and it adds it to this field here, request and title. So since I did that, I can create a calendar. Select calendar again, month, travel start date, travel end date. And instead of selecting title here, I'm going to select this column, the request and title. And that has a title and the requester concatenated. So now you can see when you create this, see now you see the requester's name and the title of the conference, training, seminar, or field visit. So that's just a little more helpful. So that's the way you could use Power Automate with creating a calendar in your list view. Okay. And I created another one for if someone came in and modified the requester and the title. So this handles that, updating that column. Okay, conditional formatting. You can apply conditional formatting, and you already saw it on one of the columns where it has the coloring here. You can color an entire column. You can color particular rows depending on a value by using a rule. And I'll show you how to do that. All items. So let's see, say if I want hotel costs, anything over $1,000, I want it colored, shaded in a different color, and maybe a border and maybe a thumbs down. So let's do, select that, column settings, format this column. Now it's showing everything in gray. I don't want that. Suppose I wanted this entire column green. I can just go ahead and change the column. Or I'm going to add a rule here and say if hotel cost is greater than 1,000, I want it, I don't know, purple. You see how that changed there? And you can click this here and select more styles. You can change the color. You can add that thumbs down icon. You can add a border, save it, close it. And that's how you can apply column formatting. conditional formatting. I'm sorry, that's the term. That just shows you how to do it. Okay, list rules. You can create rules to notify someone when a column changes, when a column's value changes, when a new list item is created, and if an item is deleted. And I'll just show you the slides here because of the time. So you just select the column and you say, I'm sorry, you don't select the column. Did I show you here? You select automate, rules, create a rule, and then these are your options. When a column, notify someone when a column changes, a column value changes, a new item is created, or an item is deleted. You select one, and then you have some options here. So in this example, I selected a column value changes. I want someone to be notified when a column value changes. Then you have this here. You can select when airfare is greater than $1,500, send an email to me, or you could send an email to the requester or whoever created the list item or the last person that modified it. That person will receive an email and it'll look like this. It'll say, Paula Jones changed airfare to $2,000 for, and this is the title of the conference or the summit. And it'll have a link for them to go to the item. Okay, we have 2 minutes. I can quickly show you how to modify the list form. So as you saw earlier, when I created a new item, that list form is in a single column, but you have the option to change the format. You can add a header and a footer. And Microsoft has, I'm gonna click on the link here. Oh no, I already have it. Microsoft has a page on their website, and here it is. And it uses JSON, and you don't have to be an expert in JSON. It's just really easy to interpret here. So here you can configure custom header, and you would just copy this JSON. I'm going to do it for the body. Configure a custom footer, and I'm going to configure the body. So I just want to copy this. So just click copy. Navigate to the list, select new, edit, configure layout. Here, I could configure the header. I don't want that. I want the body. And then I'm just going to paste that all that JSON code right there. And it tells you what you need to do. So you have sections here. It says, give a display name for the section. So let's see, and within those quotation marks, I'm going to enter request detail. And then here, reference your fields here using their display name. So it already has title. So I'm going to add a comma, and then within quotes, enter the display name of the column. So travel, no, I want requester. Requester. I want the travel start date. I want the travel end date. I want the trip category. And I want the airline. And the last one here, you don't add that comma. I'm going to add another section right here. Say give the display name for the section. I'm going to just say costs. Cost details. Ooh, can't spell here. Okay, and the fields, I'm going to list the airfare and hotel cost. And that's it. And now I need to remove these comments because I'll get an error if I do not. So give a display name for the section, delete that comment, delete this comment, reference your fields here using the display name, delete that. Here's another comment. And the last comment here, reference your fields here using. Okay, hopefully I don't have an error. I'm going to save it. Oh, I do have an error. Okay. Title, requester, travel start date, travel end date, trip category. Oh, I forgot to close quote for airline. Okay. Let's see. Okay. So now when you go to the list form, create a new list item. Sometimes it doesn't display. You have to refresh it. New. And now you have your new form. It doesn't have that one column where you have to scroll down, and you have your sections here, the request detail and the cost details. Okay. That's all the instructions. Okay, that's all I have to show you today. If you want to get the latest updates, news, and announcements about Microsoft lists, here's a link here to the Microsoft 365 blog. And I have some other links here to some helpful resources. Okay, that is it. Does anyone have any questions for me? I hope you found it useful. I hope you learned something. Any questions? Okay. I'm sorry, 1 second. I thought I saw a hand up. No questions? Going once? Let me see. Is there anything in chat? Okay. I'm just going to go up and look and see if there's any questions.
Hey, Paul, Michelle here.
Kat.
I covered
Hi,
most of the
Michelle.
questions in the chat.
Oh, you did? Oh,
I
great.
did.
Thank you.
There's quite a bit of folks asking for your PowerPoint presentation, which, by the way, was amazing. So if we can just get that out to them, would be great.
Okay. Okay. Well, if anybody thinks of a question afterwards, you can always contact me. I'm at paula.ann.jones@osbm.nc.gov, and I will definitely share the PowerPoint. And thanks everyone for coming.